back to the channel of Pro Enzo Vids, and this is my Melbourne Storm 2023 NRL season preview. Now, look, I'll address this very quickly. As you would have known that I wasn't posting any season previews recently. Obviously, there's reasons for that, and that's because I thought going forward season previews weren't the ideal sort of content to do, just because I didn't think many people would tune in. And likes and comments aren't that big, so I was just like, could this affect my analytics and stuff like that? And I just think that having to worry about doing that every single day, like all 17 clubs and stuff, it just caught up to me. I think just the fact that I have to extra work on content with each 17 clubs and stuff. So look, the goal is to obviously finish every club by at least the end of February. But I do apologise that the previews of each club haven't been happening for a couple of days now. So I promise that they are back on track. I did put in my community tab that feel free to vote if you want to see them going forward and if you don't. But most people said yes, so I guess in that case it will be going forward the season previews. But anyway, Melbourne Storm. Very interesting side for this year, because obviously now with the trial that just happened on Sunday, they've lost Justin Olam to a fractured forearm, or wrist, and he'll miss the opening 4 weeks of the season apparently. So that's a big blow for Melbourne. And Ryan Papenhuyzen is confirmed to miss 6 to 8 weeks on the sideline because of some reason. So missing them two and their key players to their backline, that's huge for Melbourne. I don't know how Melbourne replaced that, but they will have something eventually to come up with, as they have good depth. They have good depth, Melbourne, obviously. But two of your best players in Papenhuyzen and Olam's not easy to replace. So we'll see how this tests Bellamy out. But without further ado, time to get into my Storm preview officially. So onto my best ones in 17 for the Melbourne Storm side. I'd pick personally, not what everyone else would pick. It's just what I'd pick in my opinion. So at fullback, I would have Ryan Papenhuyzen. My wingers would be Nick Meaney and Xavier Coates. My centres would be one centre being Remy Smith and Justin Olam. My halves would be Cameron Munster and Jerome Hughes. My props would be Nelson Solomona and Christian Walsh. My hooker would be Harry Grant. Back rows, Elias Katoa and Tarek Sims, and lock Josh King. Then off the bench, I would have 14 Joe Chan. 15 Aaron Penne, 16 I would also have probably Kamakamika, and 17 Tom Eisenhuth. So right there, that would be my Melbourne Storm team in my opinion. Look, not a bad team at all. Definitely finals quality, even though people are saying they'll drop out of the 8, they won't, because that team's still quality and I think they'll compete and do it big time as well. Okay, onto the club's strengths for 2023. So there's some of their strengths. So I think for Melbourne, again, a very strong team. And obviously, they've still got their best spine, one of the best spines in the comp. And that's why the spine, for me, is one of their biggest strengths going into 2023. I know they've lost a lot of quality in the forwards and stuff like that, even in the backs, but they still have managed to keep Papenhuyzen, Munster, which was the big one, as he was going to go to the Dolphins at one point, but they managed to keep him. Hughes is still there, and hooker Harry Grant. Despite them losing Brandon Smith, they still have Harry Grant, which is a great thing for them. So look, and Bellamy's there as his last year as a coach most likely. So they've still got enough championship players and coaches, whatever, to still be a competitive, strong side. So I think with Melbourne, they shouldn't panic this year. They're still going to be a competitive side in my opinion, still top 4. And the biggest thing for them is keeping that championship winning spine, because that spine is fantastic, one of the best in the comp for sure. So I think just their quality and how they haven't changed too much apart from losing some experienced forwards. We'll struggle with that, but they've still got a great team in general. So I think that their spine is the biggest strength if they're going to achieve any success this year. And now onto the club's weaknesses for 2023. Look, I think one of the biggest weaknesses for them is probably losing Kafusi, Bromwich Brothers, and Smith. I think losing that quality, along with in the past Finucane already and Hines. I just think over time they're losing a bit more quality, and things are deteriorating a little bit with Bellamy going as coach as well. So I think that there will be test Melbourne going forward, losing all that premiership quality and that amount of experience. So it will be tough. But yeah, I think just losing experience and signing players that aren't proven as a top level, like Elias Katoa is obviously a very good player, but hasn't really fired any shots as a player as of recent. So everyone's saying he'll go well because like obviously he's a player that could be like another Isaiah Papali'i, for example. But with him, like it's just tough because from a Warriors system to like a Storm system, it's so different. So I don't know, but we'll see how he goes. But like I just think in general, losing all those players, it's gonna hurt. So they may not be able to adjust in some games straight away without them guys. But look, they still got a quality team, like I said, and they still will be competitive. Just that I think losing, a lot of championship players in the forwards is going to test them. So that's their weaknesses, in my opinion. Okay, on to their best signing for 2023, and in my opinion, it's not a no-brainer, and it's probably going to be Elias Katoa. Why? Because Katoa is obviously the one that has the most potential out of Joe Chan and Tarek Sims, and he's young with a lot of benefits if he gets his potential going. So I do think that he's their best signing going forward into 2023. Look, struggled with game time at the Warriors because other players were in front of him and stuff like that, and form wasn't the best for Katoa, but he goes to a lot stronger and a lot better system in the Storm that can pick up his game and make him a better player. So I do think that, Katoa to the Storm is could be a match made in heaven if Katoa kicks on and gets his form right. So yeah, I think that's their best signing. On to their worst loss now, and it's tough because they've lost so many players, like I said, and their forwards are deteriorating with experience. But I'd say the biggest loss is going to be Jesse Bromwich, in my opinion. I think Jesse Bromwich, for me, is their biggest loss. Now, Brandon Smith was going to be my biggest loss option, but because I think Jesse Bromwich has been there longer and he's really held that club together, because Brandon Smith wasn't starting, so, he's replaceable from the bench, really, but his quality will be hard to replace. But I think just because Jesse Bromwich has held that forward pack together for such a long time and his experience has been that big for Melbourne and him being such a leader, losing that's going to take a bit of time to get used to, I reckon. So I think, Bromwich gone is going to hurt. So I think he's their biggest loss. So this is a bit different. It's not top 5 games anymore that I'm looking forward to for the Storm. It's just me analysing their draw and going through some tough periods and some good periods and stuff like that. So it makes things a bit easier having to not, expect to find the best sort of games for the Storm straight away when I have looked at the draw prior to making the video. So, looking at round 1, Eels and Storm at CommBank, that's going to be a big game because it's a season opener, and obviously Eels' record over Storm recently has been really big and good. So, look, Storm will have to overcome that without Pappenhausen and Olam. So, but Storm have never lost a round 1 game with Bellamy, and their record in round 1 games has not ended since 2003 or 2. So it's very impressive, and I can see it happening and continuing. But again, that's going to be really tough to see who wins that. So that's a big game, and then obviously round 2 got Bulldogs, round 3 Titans. Well, round 2 against Bulldogs at Amy Park, round 3 against Titans at Seabus Super Stadium. Round 4 against the Tigers at Amy Park. Round 5 against the Rabbitohs at Accor Stadium. We'll be there as well, actually, for another meet-up with some content creators. Round 6 is a Good Friday week, I think. And they play the Storm, or they play Roosters at Amy Park. Round 7 take on Manly at Four Pines Park. Round 8 take on the Warriors at Amy Park for the Anzac game. Round 9's a bye. And round 10, it's the Magic Round fixture between them and the Rabbitohs at Suncorp. So that's their opening 10 games to start the season. Look, not too bad. I mean, obviously they really don't travel that much, apart from going to the Gold Coast and to Sydney for Manly and going to Brisbane for Magic Round. So they're a bit lucky to travel. I mean, round 1 against the Eels will be at CommBank too. So majority of the time they play in Melbourne to start the opening 10 rounds of the season. And round 11, they take on the Broncos at Amy Park. Round 12, they take on Dolphins at Suncorp. Round 13's a bye. Round 14, they take on the Cowboys in Townsville. Round 15, take on the Sharks at Melbourne. Round 16, take on the Tigers at Campbelltown. Round 17, take on Manly at Amy Park. Round 18, they take on the Panthers, which says TBA, but I'm assuming it's in Melbourne. Round 19, bye. And round 20, they take on Roosters at the SCG. So a bit more travelling and a bit more movement as they take on some bigger clubs like Panthers and the Roosters on, I guess, in back-to-back weeks. They travelled to Sydney a couple of times and to Queensland again. So yeah, a bit more of a difficult period, the middle part of the season, but we'll see how they overcome that. And I guess to wrap up the last 7 games of the year, they do take on round 21 the Knights at McDonald Jones Stadium. Storm and Eels is TBA, but I'm expecting it to be a game in Melbourne for round 22. Round 23, they've got Panthers, Blue Bet. Round 24, we've got Raiders in Melbourne. Round 25, Dragons at Wynn Stadium. Storm take on the Titans in round 26 at Amy Park. And last but not least, they take on Broncos at Suncorp for the last round of the regular season. So, again, a bit like the middle part of the season, a bit more travelling and a bit more of movement, but they should get past that period, I think, if they're good enough. So that's my thoughts on their draw. On to the player that has to step up the most for Melbourne 2023, and yes, you could pick a lot of players, but there's no one bigger than Ryan Papenhuyzen, in my opinion. Why? I think Pap has to be the one that steps up for Melbourne. Well, many reasons, in my opinion. I think because his injuries have not helped him, obviously. Obviously, he's had setbacks that don't help, but because he's such a big-name player and because he's missed a lot of games, especially last year, 2023 for Papenhuyzen has to be huge, and I mean huge in a way where he has to prove that, he's going to bounce back bigger and better for Melbourne and take them to, I guess, bigger heights in 2023. He needs to be consistent too because, obviously it doesn't help when he's out, but he's had some off games as well. So he needs to just get the right balance again and, just come back and be a lot better. I mean, he was working with Bill Knowles, so I'm assuming that maybe his knowledge will help Papenhuyzen be a better athlete and hopefully come back as a better player. So I think he needs to step up for Melbourne if they want to have a big year and go and do better things going forward. But on to my final prediction for the Storm in 2023 and where I have them. Look, it's a tough one as I do believe Storm can drop out of the 4 and can make the 4. But look, I think Melbourne are still a top 4 team. I do have them making the 4, but just on the brink of it. So they just get there and they finish 4th. So I do think Storm will make the top 4 still because there's still a quality side that still has a lot to offer, in my opinion. So I think when you have guys like Munster, Hughes, Grant, I think, like Munster, Hughes, Grant, Papenhuyzen, Remus Symphony's injury-free, Olam, Coates, it's still enough to me to see Melbourne at least make the finals and still be competitive. So I think 4th's a fair place for them, and they won't struggle in Bellamy's last year, no way. But everyone, that brings an end to my Melbourne Storm 2023 season preview. Hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment what your thoughts are on the Storm for 2023.